And we are recording. So thank you everyone again for joining. This is the Back to Basics enrollment webinar. Let me start off with my disclaimer saying that this should be used for training purposes only. That there is no real students, no real data being used in this. This is a sandbox server full of fake students, fake information, and any likeness to any person is purely coincidental. All right. When it comes to enrollment, we're going to go very, very far back to the beginning when we first implemented and talk and remind about some settings and about some rules and procedures and things you need to look at once you get a student enrolled, all of the different statuses that a student can end up in, how we work with those statuses, and then most importantly, what do we look at and go through after an enrollment has been completed. And I know some people might have some questions about withdrawing students, but we are doing a whole separate webinar on that. So we're going to focus this one solely on our enrollments. And the chat is open so that if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in chat and we will address them as we go along. So let's start out with our SIS right here, and we are at district office. And one of the things that's very important to note is that you should not be processing enrollments from district office. Those should always be done at a school level. So as I get ready to start actually processing some enrollments in here, you will do that at that school and I will swap out of district office. But before we do that, I want to look at one set of settings because really there's only one place that are any settings that a district can configure when it comes to what happens with an enrollment record. With us being in a state that has a state locator, and our students transferring from one district to the other inside of Alabama, we are able to bring student records across our state locator, across our ODS, so that you don't have to do a lot of manual reentry. Now, there are some things that you have to look at and update once student records come in. We'll talk about that once we start processing some inside of here. But I want to draw your attention to the plugin that controls the enrollment. So I'm going to come up here and go to plugin configuration. And I know not everybody on the call has access to the plugin configuration, but I want you to see what is guiding what is happening in your district once you process the enrollments. So when I go to the plugin configuration, I'm going to just do a search for what's called the ETS server. This is the electronic transfer server that PowerSchool uses to move our students' data across this state from one district to the next. Your PowerSchool admins have access to the plugin configuration, and they have access to set these record transfer settings for your district. Now, what are we as a district able to enable or disable when it comes to those record transfer settings? Well, I will say that this right here is probably how 80% of the districts across the state have theirs configured. What you do not want to do is disable a lot of these up here. So the first thing I would say are these four right here. Don't even have those checked because we don't want to disable our student records from being transferred. We don't want to disable the fact that they are auto transferred. So what's the difference in this? When you enroll a student into PowerSchool from another district in the state of Alabama, provided they're not an E99 status, they've already been released from the other district and they come fully into your district, then you're going to immediately get their grades, a lot of their compliance screens, their demographics, things such as that come into you automatically, unless you check this box right here that says to disable that auto transfer. If you disable that auto transfer, then the only way for you to get that record in is if you were to press the manual transfer record on a student screen, and I'll be showing that a little bit later, unless you have that disabled as well. If either of these boxes are disabled, it could be a reason for you to have a pain point in records coming across once you enroll a kid in from another district. Now, student contacts. These down here you would want to have checked if you want them to come over. So a lot of districts elect to not turn on for student contacts to transfer over because a lot of the contacts, especially like the emergency contacts that are listed nearby that might be for pickup purposes, won't necessarily be the same contacts when a student moves, hundreds of miles away into another district. So a lot of districts will disable student contacts for coming in by just not having that checkbox checked. Now, I will say this with a preface. if a district has a contact that has been listed as an original contact type of mother or father, those will automatically come in no matter what, even if you don't have this box checked. All other contacts, however, should not come in. Credentials, programs. Do you have the boxes checked so that any credentials and programs entered at another district come with that student record over into you? You should, because we want those transferring in there. Student health concerns. Do you want health concerns that another district entered in to come into you? Some select to have that turned on. Some select to have that turned off if they have some type of online enrollment process where the parents are entering the health concerns and you're delivering them over into PowerSchool SIS. A lot of times I'll get a call from a district that will say, Stacey, we've got all these health concerns that we didn't put in there and we don't know where they're coming from. And come to find out it's being delivered from that other district through the transfer process, and it's different than what the parents put in their enrollment process. Now, some of you might want to have that turned on so that if something comes over, your nurse can make contact with the parent to go, hey, on our enrollment form, you didn't fill out that they had this, but we have this documented from the other district that they have this. And then that way you can have that conversation with the parents. Completely up to you on that. Same thing with the student health plans. Those can transfer over as long as that box is checked for you to have that in there. Student historical grades and course numbers. So back when we first implemented PowerSchool, there was an issue in the fact that this box was not checked for districts. So when we started transferring kids across the state, grades were coming over, but no course number was coming over. Well, it wasn't a big deal to everyone until the athletic association started getting messed up because they read off of the course numbers and cross-reference our ALS to E course number catalog file for credit types for these kids. They don't go on what you store, they go off of what they are in those course catalogs. And so a lot of kids were being ruled ineligible because it couldn't tell what to put the grades with. So we put out an email to all the districts to say, hey, make sure you go in and check this box right here, because you most definitely want course numbers to come across for these stored grades, just like the grades that come through. Because if not, then you're going to have to manually enter those course numbers on them, and that could be an issue for you. So this is the only place that the districts have any settings that they have to think about configuring as far as what kind of records are going to transfer in our system once you move a student from one district to the next. So with that being said, now the next thing to do is actually look at processing enrollments. Now, I completely understand that we really have two major categories of enrollments across the state. We have a handful of districts that do manual enrollments into PowerSchool, and we are going to start with that first. I also realize we have a large number of districts who have an online enrollment process that delivers students into PowerSchool. We are going to start with the hand enrollment of students so that you can see how those work. And then we are going to see what it picks up with if you are a delivery student inside of there. So let me go back to the main screen, and we're actually going to flip over into my high school, and we're going to start the conversation on the enrollment. So I'm going to go to Alabama High School. So I've got some students that I have prepped from our pilot environment that we have in our little state locator that I want to walk through, that are going to give us like all the different scenarios of transferring a kid from somewhere else out there in the state. So what's going to happen when we enroll kids that have been perfectly transferred out in another district? How do they come into you? What happens when we enroll a kid who has not been transferred out or were transferred out on the wrong day in that other district? What are they going to look like in here? Things such as that. So we want to go through all of those scenarios. Now, when it comes to enrolling students, there are really two types of enrollment records. And it doesn't matter if you're delivering or if you're doing a hand enrollment, there's two types of enrollments. There is enrolling a student who has never been in your district before, and there is enrolling a student who has been in your district before. And before you know how you need to react to those, you need to know which one of those cases that student is. It's hard sometimes for districts to know if that kid had been enrolled, because it might be a student who is coming back to you as an 11th grader that maybe was in your district in kindergarten and first grade and then left all those years ago and are coming back now. And so when you go to enroll them, you're going to get this nice little error message that say, hey, student was already in your district, you must re-enroll. And you're like, this student's not there. But the way that PowerSchool works is it works off of those inactive records. Okay. So there is one thing that I do suggest to every district to help their registrars out. And this is going to be a step that is not documented in any PowerSchool help guides that you will see that PowerSchool puts out. This is only for us in Alabama because of how we do our transfer. There is a plugin that puts this button right here on the main start page of PowerSchool that's called a district search button. Because depending on if that student has been in your district before, is going to tell us how we have to go about enrolling our students. Now, let me show you the difference in those enrollments. There is an enroll a new student, which is for those of us who have to do manual enrollments. That is where we start out on our screens. I know those of you who start with online enrollment, you deliver them, you've got to go to the provisional enrollment screen. We'll get to that in a little bit. But if it's a student who was with you at one point in time, and I'm just going to grab some kid. So I got this one right here. There is a separate enrollment screen on the student record under school enrollment that's called re-enroll in school. Okay. Both of these screens go out, search the state locator for this student, finds the records, and pulls them into you and makes them an active student. But if the student has ever been with you in the past, you're going to have to go through this screen right here. You must start here. If you don't, it will eventually bounce you back to this screen, and so you get frustrated because you're putting extra steps on your process. So I tell every district, if you want to make this the easiest enrollment possible for you, when you are going to enroll a student, the first thing you want to do is see if that student is anywhere within your district at any point in time. You can hit this district search button, which is put in there by a plugin. And if you are on this call and you do not have that district search plugin, have your PowerSchool administrator at district office send me an email, and I'll send them the link of where they can find this district search plugin out in PowerSource. But it will 1000% help your registrars see who they're going to have to find to get that record moved over. So if I were to just go through and type in the last name Smith, and I'm going to just put in a birth date of this and hit search, and I don't have one. Let's see if I can go get a different one. All right, so here are all of my Smiths that are inside of my district. Now, let's just pretend that this student right here is the one that I'm trying to transfer in and enroll. So I see that this is a student who was with us at one point in time way back in first grade. Okay, well, maybe now this student is coming to me from District B across the neighborhood back into my high school. Well, when a student is in an inactive status, if I were to just go to that enroll screen and try to enroll them, it's going to immediately pop me back and say, nope, you've got to go and move their record. They're already enrolled in your district. What that tells me is, okay, where are they at in my district? Well, they were at Alabama Primary School 1. If this is a student that I want to enroll inside of this high school, then what we've got to do is I've either got to get somebody at Alabama Primary School 1 or somebody at the district office to go find this inactive record at Primary School 1, transfer them to me at the high school so I can reactivate them. So let's start with that scenario where I'm going to enroll a student who has previously been with me in the district at some point in time. So I'm just going to grab this SSID number, okay? And see, they're already in that transferred out status because it was years ago that they were, with us. We're just going with that scenario. So how would I get them enrolled? Well, like you said, because it shows that primary school 1, I've got to go back into that school. So somebody who's got access there, either you call the registrar and go, hey, this student that was there years ago, I need you to just move their record. They're going to type that /. They're going to search by the name or the SSID number, whichever one you give them. It shows you this kid is in a transferred out status. So they're going to have to come down here to school enrollment, and they're going to have to do this transfer to another school. So we're not reactivating them, and we're not enrolling them in primary 1, but I'm going to take this inactive record in primary 1, and I'm going to move it over to another school in our district. So what school? I want to move it to the high school because we're going to pretend this kid is a lot older than they are and that they're of 9th grade age. Okay. Now, the only time transfer to another school is used is when you are moving an inactive record from one school in your district to another. There is a very big misconception out there that you can use this screen to transfer a kid from one district to another. Even though I get that it lists all these other districts, you cannot use this screen to move a kid from Birmingham to Baldwin County. That does not work like that. The only thing that moves a kid's record is that state locator, and this does not touch that state locator. Okay? It just moves it from one school location, swaps that school ID to the other one in the database. So I'm saying I need this inactive record moved to Alabama High School, and I'm going to hit submit. And it says now Jariah Smith is an inactive student at Alabama High School. Great. So then I'm on the phone with my registrar at the high school and saying, okay, he's been sent over there to you. You can now re-enroll them. So I'm going to go to the high school record. I'm going to go into the high school as if I'm the registrar. Great. So I'm going to go find that student. So again, he's still in an inactive status. So I hit that /. I put that ID number or name, whichever one you want to search by, in there, and I go into his record. All right, it automatically goes to that last page I was at, which is not the page I want to be on. Because now that I've got the inactive record over there, I want to do a re-enroll in school. And I get the kid was never really in this school, so it gets kind of confusing saying you want to re-enroll in the school, but you're really re-enrolling them back into the district at this school. So I'm going to set up my enrollment record. So if I want him to say, okay, he is starting school with us today on 9/8, I put that. If it was on Friday that he came in and I'm just now like backing up because we've been backlogged on it, I'll put whatever date his entry date is going to be. I'll put the entry code in there, which should be E. If you want to be, some type of entry comment, a lot of people like to put entry comments to just give them transfer in from ABC district or ABC school, whatever you want to put in there. Full-time equivalency. So we talked about in the attendance webinar the other week about how every student has this FTE value because that's what determines ADM calculations on them. It has to deal with your ADA as well. What grade level are you enrolling them in as? So yes, this kid was a first grader when they left us, but now they're a 9th grader as they come back. So I'm going to put that they are now a grade 9 student. If there's some tracks, if you use tracks in scheduling, then you would put that on there. And district of residence, like where does this kid live? So does this kid live in my district or in another district, or are they an out-of-state student that is coming? You would pick what district they are physically residing in because some of you have out-of-district students. So we'll just say, yeah, this is an out-of-district student. This kid lives in Chambers County, and this is, let's pretend Alabama High School is in Lee County. So I would say, well, their physical residence is in Chambers County. Do I want to restore class enrollments? Well, no, because they weren't here before. So I'm going to hit submit. Now at this point is where it's going to go and find that student's record at wherever they were inside of there. So if I get some, now it might give me some partial matches, some things such as that. If it does give you that match, then you click that student, you go in. If it does not, then we know that we do that other one. So I could then choose that and hit my next on this. Now, I got some dirty data in mine with some duplicate SSIDs of some stuff I've been playing around with, so I'm not going to match that. But that is how you would pull that in when you go through and look for a student who has been in your district before. You can't just start with that enroll a student process. You must go through that re-enroll process, which includes you identifying what school in your district has the inactive record for that student. Get that school to move the record to your school so that you can then re-enroll them inside of here. If you were to try to go through the overall enrollment process, it would just bounce you back to the re-enroll. And the only way to quickly find where they were in the district previously is to have this plugin installed as a district search plugin so that your registrars can see who they need to communicate with. If you don't have that plugin installed, then the only way to find out in the district where the kid's inactive record is to call district office, and whoever the district PowerSchool admin is to search that record from district office and PowerSchool and see what school is associated with it to then go in and do it. So if you want the schools to have some kind of control and flexibility, you need to make sure that you have some provision in here like this plugin to allow them to do that search. Now, what if the student is not within you, has not been in your district before? How do we go about getting them? So let's pretend now that I've got another student here. So I've got a student on my list, Miss Snow White, who is coming to enroll in the high school. So just like I always have, I'm going to still do district search because I don't know if this kid has been there or not. So Miss Snow White, our last name is White, and her date of birth is 12/29/2007, and we're going to search. Okay, so I do not have a student by that name and by that birth date who has been enrolled with us before, so that tells me I don't have to go contact anyone to do a re-enroll. I need to do a new enrollment. So in order to process a new enrollment, I'm going to come down to the school management screen. Oops, excuse me, school enrollment screen, and do the enroll new student. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. So this is where I'm now going to take the information off of whatever enrollment form I have given the students' parents to fill out so that I can then search them in the state. Now, again, if you are in an online enrollment district, this part doesn't pertain to you. I mean, you could still do this, but if your people are delivering the students over in there, you don't have to go through this part right here. These are for all of our non-online enrollment people who have to manually put this in to then search the locator. So I'm going to put the last name in. Last name is White. First name is Snow. Date of birth. Her date of birth is 12/29/2007. Gender. She is female. Student number. If you happen to know the student number, then yes, put that in there because that will give you a guaranteed 100% match. It will match them immediately to it, even if somebody has put one of these in differently. And I always say, if you have a kid that came to you from another district in Alabama, like they're bringing in report cards from that previous district, then if you know that SSID, add it in as part of that because that will help you find those matches a lot cleaner. Student number, phone number. If you want to go ahead and put this phone number in there to see if it matches a phone number, you can. So if parent gave it to you, because here's the thing about this screen right here. Not only is it using this screen to search the state locator, but you are also going ahead and filling out demographic information on this student. So when you save this screen, anything that you put on here will become part of that student's demographic record when you hit submit and actually accept that enrollment. It is not just used to search the locator. It actually is putting data on the record as well. So if you have a phone number there, you can enter it. Well, because phone numbers sometimes, well, not sometimes, they will transfer in with that transfer process. A lot of people don't use that in there and they wait until it updates or added in later. choose my enrollment date. So we're going to say we're going to enroll the student as of today of 9/8. Again, you must choose that full-time equivalency method. Everybody should be there. And what grade level are you enrolling them into? A lot of people make the mistake of thinking this is only used to search the locator. And let's say it was a kid who was an 11th grader last year, so they'll put that in thinking they're going to find an old record. You don't want to do that. You want to put the grade level that you are wanting to currently enroll them in as. So choose that level. Choose your entry code, which the only entry code we should have is resident enrollment E. If y'all are seeing anything else in this drop down besides that right there, please let me know so we can get your database fixed, because you should only see resident enrollment E right there. Again, a track. If they are on a specific track in your district, not many of us across the state use tracks, but if you do, you would just choose that A, B, C, D, E, or F track that they are on. District of residence, same thing right here. Where is this student physically living? Whose school district boundaries? If it is your school district, then you go ahead and you choose your school district in the list. Hopefully your district admins have configured you so that you are at the top of the list. Now, my pilot server is an old clone of Opelika, so they're still at the top of the list in mine. If you don't see out of state and you know you get out of state students, y'all please let me know. I can help you get these fixed so it makes it easier and you're not having to scroll through this entire list. When I was in the district here, what I did is I put all of our surrounding, because there is a sort order you can use. There is a district of residence setup screen where you can set the sort order for which ones show up at the top. So I put all of our surrounding districts at the top because that was where the majority of the transfers came into our district. If you want to get help with that, just shoot me an email and I'll show you how to get that configured. So I'm just going to say, yep, they're in this district right here. Fee exemption status, if you're dealing with fees and you're going to exempt them, then you could go ahead and mark them here. If you want to go ahead and put their race on these, so the parents have already indicated this student is white. If you want to use that linking information, if you have set up linking for family members, then you want to search here. If not, you want to enroll without copying. I'm going to make this just a little bit quicker to enroll without the linking or copying. If you want to go ahead and put in the address here, you can. You can wait until afterward to re-verify, because you're also going to have to put it in the mailing address. So a lot of people just wait. Completely up to you on that. Then you're going to hit submit. And we're going to give it a few seconds to load that state locator. And so I'm going to look. And it's going to show me, okay, here it looks like I might have my match. So here is my Snow White. I do see that I have a different race than what they did. So it could be that there was a data error somewhere on a school district's part. We've seen it where parents have marked wrong races, marked wrong genders, have even put in wrong names and date of birth before. So if you are confident because that student came to you and yes, you know this student was from Dothan High School, then yep, I'm going to go ahead and select that record, even though it's a 93.31% match. If I wanted to know if it was a 100% match, I can always go back, put the SSID number, and it will then match 100% if it is in there. But you always want to check to see, is that student that match or not? If you know they came from a school in Alabama, they should be in this list. You want to select them, you want to scroll to the bottom, and you want to hit next. Now, if your student does not appear in that list, time out. Do not hit next. Do not do this no match new enrollment. That's only if the student literally does not have a record and has not been in the state of Alabama before. Okay, if they have, they should be matching, please reach out to us and let us help you find the right record, because it might be that we have to get a PowerSchool support ticket involved, or else we can give you the SSID to search on and guarantee that match for you. So because I did see my Snow White in the list, I'm going to go ahead and hit next and then confirm. And this is where it shows you how we bring the student in. Now, this student came through completely clean. In other words, they must have went ahead and let the other district know that they were leaving, because that district has processed a withdrawal. How do I know that they processed a withdrawal? Because I did not get an error message saying this student is going to be coming into an E99 status. Do you want to continue? It just allowed me to go ahead and continue. So if I were to go to the student enrollment screen, so I'm going to go school enrollment history, I will see that I don't see anything up here about them being E99, and they are a true E student right here. In fact, in that little time that I sat there and talked to you, the ETS server has already done its job and brought the records over from the other school. Notice that I have all of my enrollment records. Remember, we said this student was a student over in Dothan. So Snow White did great. I mean, it's been there for many, many years. I can even go through and look, if I go to academic records and come over here to historical course grades, I can see my grades have already come in from my student. And any other information that was on this student that's part of our transfer. So if I were to go to my demographics screen, I see here the address. Now, here's where you've got to think. Once you enroll these students, what might you need to update on them? Well, we know that the addresses from the other district are going to come in. Well, obviously, if they've moved, from one to the other, that's not necessarily where they're still living. I mean, there could be situations where that home address might be the same if it's a virtual student coming into one of the virtual public schools across the state. That could happen. But most of the time, these are true, like bona fide move kids. You're going to need to update that address. So I'm going to need to come in and put my new, in this case, Opelika address and choose the right county that this is in. And you can either do the validation of the address. So if I were to come here and put Opelika and then say validate and run through it. Now, this is a fake one, so of course it's going to say no validation. If it tries to validate and give you something wrong, because we do have some instances where Smarty Streets, which is what Level Data uses to validate these addresses, doesn't put the right county on there. And you're like, no, I know this is in this county. Then say keep the original and you hand enter whatever county it is in there. Don't let an incorrect validation stay in your data, because then that means that bad data is going to come up here to the state for that student. And so I can see all the others. So it actually brought in. So do you see, remember when I did that enrollment, what did I check on that student? I checked that they were white. Well, what were they in the other district? They had them marked as Black African American. So you want to make sure that you have the correct items on there. So revalidate anything that comes through for your district and make those updates. Now, some other things that are very important to note that comes through on these enrollments are on this compliance screen. Anything that had been entered, I'm gonna not worry about saving that. Anything that had been entered on these compliance screens, the majority of this data is going to transfer in. So if this student had any of this information like this right here, the general ed pathway, that's stuff we're putting in right now, the newest thing, our graduation pathways, this data is going to transfer over into your district so that you're not having to re-enter that information. If there had been any CCRs checked, they would come over into your district so that you don't have to recheck them. Also, two other very important screens to look at, because you might need to communicate to others in your district. Look at this special program screen, because this special programs is holding all of the profile information for our students. So as soon as that kid enrolls, you can come to this screen right here and see what kind of special ed status this kid might have, because we all know we ask parents on our enrollment forms, is your student special ed? And some check yes or no, and they're completely wrong. Okay, we know that that happens. You can look at this right here to give this to your special ed coordinator and say, hey, I just enrolled Snow White and I'm showing information from past dates. So you might want to look into this and see if, maybe the other district let something lapse, or are they in an active status? So we're going to need to continue something and ask for an envelope after that point. This is where you'll be able to see any information that's coming from those special programs profiles. It moves immediately with that enrollment. Also, federal programs, because if you have students who have been marked as homeless in there, that information, that EL information, immigrant information, this stuff is going. So see, I've just enrolled Snow White, and when I come here and look, I can see that the other district that this student came from has already verified that they are homeless for this year. So that tells me I need to get in touch with my homeless liaison at district office to go, hey, they were being provided services in the other district. We need to now start looking at them at providing services as well and seeing if there's any assistance that needs to be given. Because once a student is classified as homeless, they're homeless for the entire year. Now, maybe the circumstances have changed, so the services provided aren't the same as what the other district had to provide. But you need to know this, because when we do rollover, these kids are going to go back to potential and be on a list for you to either discount to say they are no longer homeless or re-verify that they are still homeless. So lots of informations that are going to come through here. If this student had any kind of academic and career plan on here, you would get any of the credentials or programs that have been declared. So like I can see right here that there have been previous program declarations for this student in other years. So that helps me as a career tech teacher that just has this kid who has come in that we didn't know anything about. So there's a lot of information that automatically transfers, but you've got to make sure somebody is laying eyes on it to let someone else who's over these parts and pieces know about this student. So that's the example of the type of student we would always love to enroll. The ones where they let the other district know, they have already transferred out, they come in clean, there's no bumps, no bruises in that academic record. It's good to go. So now let's take one where we might have an issue. So I'm going to go back to school enrollment, and we're going to enroll another new student. So right behind Miss Snow White, we had Mr. Luke Skywalker come in. Y'all love my names today, you know it. His date of birth is 9/24/2007. His gender is male. Again, same thing. If I knew the student number, I'd put it in there. If not, I can leave it blank. If I want to do phone number, enrollment date, we're going to leave it as 9/8. Or excuse me, let's say that this is a kid who came in last week and I'm just now getting to him. So let's say it needs to be 9/4. Full-time equivalency is full-time. Grade level that he is in is 11. That is what I'm enrolling him into with a resident enrollment. District of residence. So yep, my district. So I'm going to choose it. And I don't have to put this in. If you wanted to, you could, but again, know that it will override if it comes in something different from the other district. So I'm going to choose those and hit submit. We're going to go out to the state locator. And here is Mr. Luke Skywalker, and I can see he has been transferred out, which is great because that means he will pull in and I won't have any issues. So yep, I know that this was a student who was at Dothan, so he is my right kiddo. So I'm going to choose Luke. Oh, but I got an error message. Student was active in another school within the given enrolled date. Do you want to proceed? Okay, so now I have an issue. So what is my issue? Because it says they were transferred out. So why am I getting this right here? Anybody know who's on the call? You know, I like to engage y'all in this chat. What's happened if a student is in a transferred out status, but it's telling me that they were enrolled? That's right, Carrie. The dates are overlapping. So whatever date they withdrew Luke on is somehow after my date. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here as next and confirm and go ahead and pull them in so we can see what happens in these E99 statuses. Because this is the same kind of enrollment that you're going to get if they haven't been withdrawn at all or if they were withdrawn and the wrong date was applied. Now, here's the problem with little Luke. Because he is an E99, if I were to come down here to school enrollment and go to enrollment history, I'm going to look and I'm going to see. Now, take a look at what happened. And this did go ahead and bring through these records. I will tell you, if the kid's transferred out and they're in an E99 status and it's an overlap, it will still bring the records over. If that kid has not been transferred out yet, it will not let the records come over. It hangs those up and it will not bring them over until you resolve that E99 altogether, until they have withdrawn them. But because this was an overlap, I do get to see what the issue is. So take a look at these records. What date did I enroll this student? 9/4. What date did they withdraw the student? 9/5. So let's think about this. When you withdraw a student, you always withdraw the day after their last day with you. Okay, so if they use 9-5, then that would indicate the student was with them on 9-4. Well, the student can't be with them on 9-4 and me on 9-4. So somebody's got to make a change. Now, if I know that this student is sitting right here with me, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call my good buddy Patrick over at Dothan, and I'm going to go, hey, Patrick, can you give me an assist here? Because they put that this date is, but this today is 9-4, and this kid, they were right here. I've got attendance. I've got grades. This kid was here. They can then go in. Okay, now what happens to this record? Let's stop that before I go into what they're going to do. Where does this kid's record go if it hits this previous enrollment situation? So if I'm back at the main page of PowerSchool under school enrollment, we do have this provisional enrollment screen that everybody should be aware of. Because when kids go into this status, this is where they get, I'm going to say, stuck. So I've got little Luke right here, and it says the student is withdrawn and transferred out where they came from, but there is an entry-exit date overlap. It's exactly what we just talked about. I got another kid over here. Somebody enrolled Mr. Tim Curry. And Mr. Tim Curry has not been withdrawn at all. Now, I could sit here and try to resolve this. I can't even try to resolve this one up here because they've not been let go from Dothan yet, but this kid has been. Well, the only way to resolve it is for them to have a date that has been corrected. So what we would do is call them over at Dothan and say, hey, could you correct this for Luke? So I'm going to grab Luke's number, and here is my little fake Dothan server. So we're going to log in and watch what happens to kind of complete this process. You would either call the school or you would call the district office, whoever you got the contact with at that school, and you would say, hey, I need you to go find little Luke in his enrollment record. So I would go back here. Appreciate you, Patrick. Patrick would always help me if it was a Dothan student. He would go into this entry code right here, and we would update this record to say 9/4/2025. Because is it okay for them to have an exit date of 9/4 and me to have an entry date of 9/4? Absolutely, because again, the exit date is the day after they left. So this would mean that the student's last day in Dothan was on 9/3, meaning they could start my district on 9/4. So I would then save that record. Oh, it's going to, oh, and now the state locator is not there. And actually, I should have done this from the school level so that it would go through and then be able to resolve. So let's just see right quick if I can do that at the school. Yep, we want to leave here. And let's look for Mr. Skywalker again. And hopefully the state locator has not gone berserk while we're in the middle of a training. If so, I'll show you how to get around that as well. So if I change this to 9/4, and for some reason that FTE was not selected, but we're going to go ahead and select it and hit submit. There we go. Now we've got this corrected. So with that corrected, and I'm on the phone with Patrick because we're just, working this out together, I should now be able to refresh this screen. And I'm going to see Mr. Luke has changed places. He was up here as an E99 withdrawn, transferred out at losing district. He now has been, or excuse me, with entry exit date overlap, and he's now been moved down here to E99 withdrawn, transferred out at losing district with no issue. So this tells me I now have the green light to resolve this student, and he should be able to go automatically through and we not have any issues on his enrollment. So I'm going to go to resolve. I'm going to say, yep, I need him to have that entry code of 1. That should not say cross LEA. If it does, please let me know if y'all have that in there, because you should not have that in there. It's going to keep my entry dates and exit dates what they were from my enrollment. I'm going to hit submit. And ta-da, he now has been resolved. And if I were to go up here and search him up real quick, Mr. Luke Skywalker, Notice he is in an E status, not an E99 status any longer. So those are the kinds of conversations that you have to have with those districts if they have not transferred them out correctly or have not transferred them out yet. Just to do one more for you, if I go back, now I'm kind of shortcutting this right here. Remember, we should always start with our district search to see if the kid was previously in the district and we need to do a re-enroll. I got Marty McFly sitting in front of me now, and when we enroll Marty, I've already searched him and Marty's not been in the district before, so I'm going to come over here to school enrollment. I'm going to go into enroll a new student, Mr. Marty McFly, and date of birth is 7/12/2007. Gender is male. This time, I'm going to put his student number in to show you how it will give you that 100% match, 196-803-1318. Not going to worry about that phone number. Going to use today's enrollment date, full time, grade level, another 11th grader, because today's the day for 11th graders. Resident enrollment, and my district of residence. Not going to worry about Lincoln, and we're going to submit, and let's see what the state locator does with Marty. Okay, so it tells me right here, Marty McFly is still currently enrolled. Notice I got my 100% match now because I knew the state student number and I entered it in. So what do we know is automatically going to happen because it's telling me he is still currently enrolled over at Dothan High School? When I go to choose him, I can go ahead and still enroll him, but he's going to come in as that E99 status, and it tells me he is provisionally enrolled with an E99. So if I'm over here on my enrollment screen, let's refresh this screen. Where's he land? Up at the top with Mr. Marty McFly, or excuse me, with Mr. Tim Curry. So now the only options I have right here is to give a call to Dothan and go, Patrick, what's going on? Because, maybe this is a kid who came in this summer and they told you they were coming, because we all have this happen. Marty said he was coming, but he doesn't show up on the first day. What am I doing? So you call Mama and she goes, oh, yeah, we decided not to move after all. We're staying in Dothan. Okay. So I can't call Dothan and say, hey, Dothan, will you let him go? Because he's not staying and he's not coming to me. He's staying in Dothan. At that point, the only thing you can do from E99 students that have not been withdrawn is to no-show them. Now, we know there are issues with that no-show process because it puts them in an inactive status. We're going to talk about that heavily on the withdrawal webinar. There's a video on the PowerSchool YouTube channel showing all the things you have to fix from it. If at all possible, you really want to try to resolve provisional enrollments to get them in, and then if something happens and the kids do not come to you, you would withdraw them out after the fact. You really don't want to do these no-shows from provisional, but there is like a 0.57% of the time where you actually have to do that. And when you do, we're going to walk you through and help you with that. But let's say Marty is supposed to come to us, then I'm going to go and call my friend Patrick at Dothan, and I'm going to say, hey, Patrick, can you go and withdraw this student? They have come here. They are starting class with us today. Because it could be that the parent never let Dothan know that Marty was leaving them. That absolutely happens. And so by letting them know when you give them the call, they'll let that student go so you can go ahead and complete that provisional enrollment. And it would work the same as what we've done in the prior ones. Now, all this has been a lot of what happens if we are a non-online enrollment district. Okay, so some of y'all have been sitting on here going, Stacey, none of this applies to us. Well, it kind of does when it gets to this page. But if you are an online enrollment district, then you almost live on this page right here, because when a student is delivered from online enrollment, they go to provisional enrollment down here to an E90 status. Okay, because in order to bring a kid into your district, you have to run them through the state locator. You cannot just deliver them from online enrollment into the CSM, poop, they become part of the system because your online enrollment programs are not connected to the state locator in the same way that the SIS is connected. I know y'all have kind of like internal locators in your online enrollment programs to let you know if they've been, in your district before, kind of things. But if they are a student who you deliver, it's going to land here. And very similar to what we saw when they landed up here in E99, there's going to be these resolve buttons. You're going to click that resolve button. It's going to run it through the state locator just like we did on those others. And one or two things are going to happen. It's going to go ahead and find that kid. You're going to match them. You're going to move them through. Or it's going to say, hey, this student was with you, at some point in time, go find the inactive record and do a re-enroll in school. And you have to do what we did at the very beginning with the Smith student that we had. So those are going to be your instances. But the biggest thing is to make sure you're searching. If you know the student is coming from another district in Alabama, please do not hit that no match button. It's so easy to want to hurry through this and get the kid in, but you cause way more issues on your end by putting them in and having to get those duplicates cleaned up. Then let's make sure we reach out to somebody to get that SSID or figure out why they're not matching. And trust me, you can reach out to me. I will tell you that SSID because I can go look in AIM, find them from that other district, give it to you, and then you put it in there and get that 100% match. So my advice is if you had any kind of trainings with your registrars or if you're a registrar on this call is to enforce that point right there and making sure that you understand the importance of not going ahead and enrolling unless you know you have that right student. If you ever have questions, we can always look through them together. We can get all the calls on the phone if you need to. If you're having trouble with a district not responding to your calls or your emails on there, shoot me an email and say, hey, Stacy, I've tried for 5 days to get Dothan to, let go of Snow White and they won't do it yet. Can you help me? Then I'm just going to go and email my friend Patrick and go, hey, Patrick, can you give me an assist here? And a lot of times what I do is just reach out to the district people and go, hey, we need some help here. Can you provide this? And typically it gets solved very quickly. We know that it gets to be a busy time of year and sometimes a lot of people have a lot of things on their plate, but we really need to work to resolve E99s as quickly as possible for both the state and for you. A lot of things cannot happen when a student is in E99 status. Most of your third-party vendors don't accept E99 students, so they can't get over into Clever and get into iReady and get into all the little, McGraw-Hills and this and that that you need them to be in. If it's a high school student, they can't be enrolled into Cross LEA. So if you need them to be into an access program, they can't get over in there. If you need them to get into DRC, they're not going to go in there. So you want to try to make sure that you're laying eyes on this page as often as possible. And if you are a district office person, you can actually from district office see your entire district's provisional enrollment to see if you've got a school that's not been responding to their E99s as efficiently as they should be. You can come over here at district office to school enrollment, to provisional enrollment, and see all of your school's provisional enrollments on this one screen. You can also resolve them here if you need to, but this is where you can lay eyes and have the conversations that you need to with those that are bringing them in. Now, when those kids come in, let's talk. We kind of glanced over it a little earlier, but let's really go into detail about what do you have to go through and update once you pull these students in? So let's go back to Mr. Skywalker that we pulled in. We know that when we enroll students, we really have to pay attention to this demographic screen because when you enroll a student, it is automatically going to pop lots of errors over in AIM if this demographic information is not filled out. So you want to make sure that your folks are coming in and they are updating that address, they are getting that county of residence in there. And a lot of people, because it automatically pulls that old address from the other district in the ETS server, they think, oh, there's an address, I don't have to worry about it. But these are used in state collections. So you really want to make sure that you get these updated. So you want to enrollment forms. So you, whoop, I just realized I hit the hour marker. Is everybody back now? Okay, perfect. Yep, that hour mark gets me. All right, so what I was saying is we're going back through Luke Skywalker, and we're really going to look through what we have to update once we enroll. We kind of brushed through it with some of the kids a while ago, but I really want to kind of look through this and give you some things to think about. So first thing I would do is make sure you hit your demographics, because this is going to pop the most errors over in AIM if your demographics are filled out incorrectly or not filled out at all. So you want to make sure you come in here and immediately update that home address. Get the home and mailing address that they are for your district. Make sure that county is filled out, because those counties do not transfer in there. Oh, share the screen. Yep. Appreciate y'all. On the demographics page, you want to make sure to fill out that address and fill out that county on there so that you don't get those errors over in AIM. So I'm going to flip these to the county that I need. I'm going to make sure I have the right address for where they are currently living. If there is a home phone number, we're going to put that in. If you've got, your core student email, you want to fill that in. You make sure the date of birth is correct. Make sure that the race is correct, and it's correct with what the parents have put in your online registration or on your physical registration form, so that it can be corrected. Now, hopefully most people have this part of this page hidden, because these are those old legacy contact fields that we really don't use. And I tell people, do not enter information from this, because if you enter stuff on here, it automatically creates a contact record. Well, if that student had original contact types of mother and father, you have now just duplicated them on there because the original ones came through in the transfer. So there is a way to hide this from your schools altogether, so they cannot populate this information, because it causes issues over in your contacts. So we don't want to touch that. Make sure, especially if they're high school, that they have a base cohort year and that this base cohort year is correct. Go and look at their transcript in their when they started taking ninth grade classes, because the first year they start ninth grade classes is when that base cohort year is supposed to be in. Let me get that saved right quick. So let me submit. Scroll back down. Let's look at this history. Look to see, do they have any anomalies in this base cohort? Like, this is a problem. Okay, they have it in there twice. This will cause issues in validations in the base cohort report. If you see something like this where they have multiple ones or incorrect ones that are on there along with the correct one, because some people might just go in here and create a new record but not delete out the bad record, come down here and get rid of the one that is not needed. You should only have that one of the correct record in there. All right, other thing to look at the contacts. So I'm going to go into contact management. Did Luke have any contacts come over from the other district? The only thing that should have come over, if they had any, would be any that had an original contact type of mother or father. Well, apparently Luke did not have any in the district that he came from, so there's none listed right there. Let me see. Let's bring up Snow and see if she had any. Let's pull Snow. Contact management. Did not have any. And the other one was McFly. So here's Marty. And Marty's not going to have any because they've not even been transferred out yet. So none of those had original contact types come in, so they would not be in there. But you want to make sure to go in, add your contacts in, because you need in an emergency situation to be able to reach out to someone. Email, if y'all are using that, you want to make sure to go put that in there. A lot of these are going to be very specific to your district policies and what need to be in there. But as far as state, get those demographics, check the base cohort. A big one for you to check are going to be these grades, and here is why. Go to those historical course grades. So I want you to notice at what comes in right here. And I will say it's very split across the state at how we do grades. Some districts use the ABCD grading on a 100% scale. Some people actually use a 100-point grading on a 100% scale. So in other words, when they go to historical grades, they see 99, 98, 97, whatever the grade is instead of the A, B, C, D. Now, that could be very important to you all depending on how you print transcripts, how you print report cards, and things such as that. If you want to make sure that your people see grades, like the actual percent, let me click into just this right here, this ACT prep grade right here. I can see here that this district is on an ABCD scale, but I'm on a 100% scale. Well, this could cause issues with GPAs if you have a GPA set to look at a specific grading scale and this grade is not part of that grade scale. So if I'm using a 100-point grade scale, it would not recognize this A because it uses this to calculate, but it uses this to see if it's a part of the grade scale to know to calculate it in there. If you have GPA set to look at a specific grade scale, which is one of the reasons I always advise to not have it point to a grade scale so you don't have this happen. But some of you I know want it to look at a specific grade scale, and if you do, then you're going to have to go in here and adjust these grade values to be their actual percent values possibly for your district. So you just kind of have to look at it and see. You need to look at what buckets they are stored in because we know that we should all be using F1s and F2s, but I have seen some Y1s come through where there's some districts who are using things outside of what has been kind of the model for Alabama. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that. Again, we talked about our special ed page. We talked about our federal programs page. You want to go through those compliance screens. You want to go through the health records and see if there's anything that you might need to alert your nurse on and kind of help out your other people in the schools if you're the ones doing the enrollments. And I know that's kind of a big task to ask, especially in our large districts where you have lots of kids. We're all enrolling or withdrawing a kid every single day. Every day somebody is touching a kid's record in here, withdrawing or enrollment. We're just a very transient state like that. So it's a lot to go in and remember these, which is why we wanted to make sure to kind of go through all of this in a webinar with you to help you out on that. So guys, that's kind of really the top to the bottom of the enrollment. Are there any specific questions that anybody has as we've gone through this, or any scenarios you want me to look at with you on it? Feel free to throw them in chat. Any questions you have on our enrollment? Nothing coming through yet. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording so it can be rendering.